Hail Zen fam, 'tis me, the mighty, the indestructible Zen bloke. Nah, I'm just being daft, you ken that. Right, so, a couple of you have been reaching out to me recently on a couple of matters here and there, so I thought, well, I'm always saying that if you guys want me to talk on a thing, I'll talk on a thing. And I like to think I'm a YouTuber of my word. So, let's talk about those things, shall we? Okay, so first of all, before I get started, please remember the competition is still running, and if you want to be one of those 2 people to win a t-shirt, you need to not only enter the competition, which of course, as always, the link will be in the description, but also I need to be at 500 subscribers. If I'm not at 500 subscribers by the 23rd of October, which is getting mighty close, boys and girls, then yeah, I'm gonna have to withdraw the competition and nobody will win a t-shirt. I don't want that. I want winners. Okay, so one of you out there was basically going like, what do you think of this whole idea of games being 70 quid? And I'm kind of torn on it, to be honest. Part of my brain is going, okay, so we're going next generation, and the true next generation games, the games that have been developed, that are going to be developed purely for this generation coming, you know, purely for Xbox Series and PlayStation 5, will be very much for those systems. Therefore, they're going to require more work in textures and AI and mapping and modelling and all kinds of stuff that I'm not a programmer, so I don't understand. I'm not a dev. I mean, I did tried way back in the day doing a bit of fiddling with 3D modelling. Let me tell you, that stuff's not easy. It's very much 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's horrendous. So I take my hat off to any dev out there making stuff, because wow, you guys out there who do that, ultimate skills, enough respect. But yeah, but then there's another part of me that goes, but you've got enough money for the likes of Bobby Kotick and Andrew Wilson to walk away with quite literally millions every year. You know, it's like, now I could reconcile that 70 quid a year if I could know that the devs, the staff, the actual makers of the content were getting a bigger slice of the pie. If they were walking home with a wee bit of a bigger paycheck, I could live with that. But most of the time, they don't. Chances are they'll get exactly the same as they're getting now. And considering that game development is shall we put it, as a volatile job market. You finish a game, and then you and your entire team, or most of it, you're out in your ear. You're not like full-time employees, you're contracted. Most game development staff is contracted, which basically means once the project's over, you get given your walking papers and you're off ski. And then you have to look for another job with another company with another upcoming project, along with all the other people that have just been slung out along with you. So there's no real job security unless you're really high up, and even then you've still got to go around, you've still got to apply, and chances are, especially if you're a dev in like North America or that, you've got to up sticks and move across the country, you know. And heaven forbid you end up in a city like San Francisco, or New York, because those cities are horrendously expensive to live in. So it's like, if I could know that these devs were getting a wee bit more money for the hard work they put in, then, like I say, I could kind of go with that a bit more. But I know, because of capitalism, that basically that extra money is not going to go towards R&D. It's not going to go towards the staff. It's not going to go towards getting better equipment for them to work on. It's going to go to the CEOs. You know what? I don't think the CEOs are worth that much. I really don't. Because what do they actually do? What does Bobby Kotick actually do? I'd really like to know, because he runs it. Big whoop. I just don't get it. But here's the thing, okay? So you've got your more expensive games that are able to do more whiz-bangery. Fantastic. But sometimes they don't. I think it's going to have to be on a sliding scale, really. With sports games, for instance. A sports game, okay, you got to pay for the license, but then how much of that game is actually, actually really anything new? Most every football game out there, and most sports games, to be fair, they're just a prettier version of what was before. You might add a bit more realism into how the ball moves and how the players look and stuff. But when you get right down to it, quite a lot of sports games, are basically just, hey, this looks nicer. And what's the most expensive thing about something like, the latest FIFA game, is not so much the development, it's getting the rights to the faces and likenesses and team logos and company logos and all the rest of it, so that it all looks as close to real life as possible. And as much as I don't like sports games, but even if I did, I think I would feel somewhat aggrieved of spending money so that money can be spent on companies that I don't care about, so that their logo could be in the game for free advertising. No. That's a big bag of no. That's a portion of no chips with no sauce, and a cup of no cola at the side. Just no. Get lost with that noise. Oh man. So basically, if you've got like some big mad game that's doing big mad stuff, and really pushing the boundaries, then I can understand that, pushing its way up to the £70 mark. But if it's like a wee 10-hour experience, if it's like a Life is Strange, in that sort of ballpark, then nah. That sucker needs to stay at £50, maybe even £40. So I think there needs to be more of a sliding scale. But then we come down to the quantity versus quality debate, don't we? It's like, you could argue, well, what about the Order 1886? That wasn't desperately long, but it looked beautiful. And it's like, yeah, that's tricky. Because I played the Order. I liked the Order. It was a good game. It wasn't a perfect game, and there were some parts that were very generic. But it was beautiful to look at, and it was, it completely sucked you into its world. So the question then becomes, what do we do with that? Yes, you can have a really super beautiful game, but is the beauty worth the money? Or you can have a game that doesn't look so great, but the story is fantastic. Are you paying for the story? And, the graphics might just be a bit PS3 looking, but the story is amazing. Or you might have a game that has an incredible multiplayer, where the servers are rock solid, the community is great, everything works well. There's no spongy there's no spongy enemies, and everything just it just goes, it just works, it just flows. But the story mode's a joker. It's like, it's just too complex, it's too weird, it's too big. So yes, you can have a sliding scale, but how do you operate that scale? And then how do you get people en masse to agree upon that scale? I mean, take a small example, right? Look at IGN, okay? Every year they have a Game of the Year discussion, and among all the editorial staff, of which there's probably like about 40, 50 of them, they come together and they spend a couple of days arguing games in a room, just back and forth. This game is great because this, it's better than that game because this, blah blah blah. Like us, but worse. No filter, right? It's like, wow. And it takes them, people that know each other and work with each other, and probably like each other, mostly, that like, they can't agree. It takes them that hard at a time to agree upon 10 games that are awesome and a Game of the Year. You want to ask an entire planet's worth of gamers to agree upon a sliding scale for game pricing and what denotes quantity and quality. Aye. Good luck with that. So, I think we're basically stuck where we're stuck. Some games are going to be 70 quid. Going forward, more games are going to be 70 quid. Finishing up, all the games will be 70 quid. And aside from choosing to not buy the game or buy it second hand, if you've got a physical PlayStation 5, like yours truly did, then you're SOL, mate. SOL. And I'm going to keep it those abbreviations because I like to keep these videos family friendly and non-sweary. So, what else? Right. Oh, before I move on, do remember that at the end of the month I'm intending upon doing a live Q&A video here on YouTube, probably on a Thursday night. It'll probably replace the usual stream, and I am considering the notion of doing a how the sausage is made video, so if you want to see that, let me know. And do please remember, if you do want to see an unboxing video of the PlayStation 5, that even though admittedly will be like a week behind all the other unboxing videos, but you want my take on it, you know what to do. Get typey in that comment section. Okay, so a really long time member of the Zen fam. Some of you really long timers will actually know his face because he's actually been physically in a couple of the videos when I've shot in real life. And yeah, he's a good lad. But here's the thing, he asked me to speak upon, in a following video, what I think of all the systems as it stands at this moment. We're in a pre-launch situation, so we know some stuff about the systems, and a good chunk of us out there have ordered systems and are just waiting to get them. So let's see, we'll also include some present stuff, and some stuff we're waiting on. I think it's probably fair. Try and be as wide based with this as possible, and I'll be as honest as I usually am. And I like to think I've been pretty honest with you guys over the years. Okay, so let's start with the elephant in the room. Stadia. Stadia. What are we going to do with you? Hey, that rhymed. Hey, I read lyrics. Okay, so Stadia. great idea in principle. Shocking payment model. Don't like it at all. As half the lounge falls down while I try to reach for my pad, so my PlayStation doesn't turn itself off while I'm talking to you, good people. God. Anyway, yeah. So Stadia, good idea in principle, but the payment model is ridiculous, and the exclusivity is not there. And I just don't like the model, don't like the controller, and quite frankly, as you've heard me say quite a lot over the years, I like to own my games. That's a personal preference. Downloading is great too. I mean, I've got a few digi titles on both. You know, I had some on the PS3 when I had her. I got some on this PS4 down here. Doubtless I'll probably have some on PlayStation 5. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with digital per se. It's just no for me. But it has to be said, there's a double-edged sword when it comes to digital games, and that's the history of gaming. Now, you can have games that are there and that that no longer exist on systems, and they can be brought back, but then they can also be removed. There's no substitute in my mind for having the original disc in a system that'll play it, which is why backwards compatibility, I believe, does have a place. But also the problem with backwards compatibility is it does significantly raise the price of the hardware, because you have to make the new hardware understand the old software, and that's where it gets tricky. That's why the original PlayStation, the old fat 60, why it was so expensive, why it was 600 quid when it came out, is because it literally had they had the chipset of the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 inside it. Although I think it was just chipset of the PlayStation 2, because the PlayStation 2 could automatically understand the PlayStation 1. Up until I think like the Super Slim. I think the Super Slim they took that out, but I might be wrong. If you know better, typey. Yeah, so Stadia, not for me. I know other people enjoy it, but I just think it's flawed. That's my own personal. And I will say exactly the same thing for Luna. In fact, I'd probably say it's an even worse situation, because we're talking about two gigantic mega corporations that want to know everything about you and own everything. And they want you to own nothing but pay them lots of money. Getty France. Alright, just Getty France with that. That is not happening. Zenblock is not going out like that. Alright, you can take your Luna and you can just go. Okay, that's not happening. What else? We've got all those little kind of funky systems like the Retron 5 and stuff that are coming along and making an interesting splash, sort of like get your retro gaming. You get your old car, you whack it in the new machine, it just works, and they've got special settings so they work with new types of TVs, your flat panel monitors, which is nice because, having those black bars just makes it look awful, and then when you do all the extending and it gets all pixely. So if you've got a system that can handle that and make it look nice. A promise of the game that was, sorry about sneezing on the video, but these videos are unscripted, it's all off the top of me noggin. Okay, so we got the retro systems. That's cool. Those I'm happy with. I'd probably quite like to own a couple of those. That'd be nice, because you can actually keep the old games going. However, the mini systems, no, the mini systems, they are too much of a gamble. Yes, the mini SNES was great. That was such a clever idea. Was it SNES or NES? I forget now. Good God. Oh, what am I sneezing all this for? Ah. Okay, so the mini Nintendo system was great fun, and lots of titles upon it. It was just, it was fun for days, absolutely for days. But then the days ended, and how many people do you know still play those on those micro systems? Mostly they become a talking point. It sits there, you might have a few friends, or you might break it out and give it a go. But chances are, especially the now, in the Voldemort times, we can't have our mates round. Oh, God. It's all getting a bit much, isn't it? Right, hang on, excuse me a second, I've got to blow my nose. You didn't want to see that. Okay, where was I? Yeah. So, like the PlayStation 1, that was terrible. I mean, there's some interesting games on it, but it was just a hot mess. Let's face it, it was a hot mess. It didn't work very well. The modding scene for it, however, brilliant, but not everybody has those skills. A lot of people don't have those skills. So, yeah, the modders, they can have fun with it. But basically, the miniature systems, fun for a bit, but not really anything you can really hang your hat on. Then we start moving to some of the more modern stuff. Like, we start talking about things like the Atari Vcs. That's a hard sell. We're talking about a machine that costs more than the next gen consoles, but does less than the next gen consoles. As far as I can tell, it's completely download only. The controller doesn't look very good. It just looks like an endless run of mistakes. It's like, I just don't understand why they built it or what they thought the purpose of it was. It just looks just terrible. I don't want to sound like I'm being mean or anything, but there's just nothing to it. There's just there's just no reason to own an Atari VCS, especially not at the price that they're wanting. I mean, it's a talking point, that's all it is. Right, so let's get down to the meat and potatoes. Let's talk the series consoles. You have the Series X and the Series S. Right, so your Series S, let's start there, shall we? Small, compact, interesting design features, to say the very least. But the thing that gets me the most is that it's roughly about half the power of its bigger brother, and it's roughly about half the cost. But then if you want to have enough memory in it for the stuff you're going to be doing with it, then you're definitely going to have to buy the memory extension stick, which is going to be, at the end of it all, costing you about the same, if not a little more, depending on the retailer and stuff, than buying the X. So you'd be as well buying the X. And then if you could afford the memory extension card, then hey, woohoo! But yeah, you're better off getting the X over the S, because it's got to be able to do all the stuff and have all the memory, because it's got a terabyte in it. Now, admittedly, the way that the SSD works in the X is not as fantastic as it could be. It could be a better system. It could also not be a better system. It could be an absolute junk pile. But it is impressive. It's a big beastie, but it looks like it's going to be properly cooled mean, that's the thing this upcoming gen. They've really been working on the cooling. No more overheating systems. At least that's the hope. So yeah, keep those systems nice and cool, and keep those discs running, and I think we'll be alright. Now, admittedly, me personally, I've never liked offset sticks. I like symmetrical sticks. So I don't know if I could ever bring myself to own an Xbox. Mostly because of that. I mean, there's a lot of really great games in the past that have happened on Xbox. But then also on the subject of games in Xbox, we do have to discuss how very recently Microsoft quite literally bought ZeniMax, which means they own Bethesda, they own id, yada 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 yada. So basically, a large proportion of games are very soon going to be under the Xbox umbrella, and will probably not be playable by the likes of me, a PlayStation person. Now, some would call anti-consumer measure, and there's a small argument for that, but quite frankly, capitalism is going to capitalism, and that's how it's going to roll. Microsoft are a big company with deep pockets. They clearly believe in their system, otherwise they wouldn't have spent the money to acquire these studios so that their system could have games. Now, admittedly, yes, what it's mostly about in Microsoft is getting you in that Xbox ecosystem, so then you're buying Game Pass, so then you can play it on PC or an Xbox or on a phone or a tablet, blah 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 blah, your smart fridge, whatever. But the point is, they want that regular income from you, the gamer, so they can just keep on pumping it out. And the thing is, for the first good few years, there's going to be a lot of games that will still come out on the PlayStation and probably even still on the Switch, because there are contracts in place, and to get out of those contracts would just be a nightmare. So, for a good while to come, we, on the other systems, the Switch and the PlayStation, we will still be able to get games that come from the ZeniMax house of studios. So it'll be alright for a while to come, and the fact of the matter is, we might stay good forever to come, because it's very simple. What do game sales do? They make money. What does Microsoft love? Money. So they're not going to, shoot themselves in the foot and not get the sales. Now, where it gets tricky is if they're shown by the likes of Digital Foundry or whatever to deliberately make the Xbox version of any particular cross-platform game superior deliberately to monkey the position of the other companies. Like if you buy the next Fallout and it plays like in the most horrendous way possible you can imagine on the PlayStation, but for some reason on the Xbox S it runs like a dream. Then we have to start calling things into question. So we have to keep an eye on that, you and I, especially guys like me, because I run a channel and I'm giving you guys information. So I need to know what I'm talking about, obviously. And I like to think, by and large, I do, because I've got a butt ton of experience. Wow. And now, right, so we've got the Xbox, and that's looking fine and dandy. I've got no problem with Xbox. They bring the power, they bring the games. They need to obviously work a bit more on the customer service thing, but then all companies do. Just as long as they don't try any cheap shenanigans, then yeah, we'll see what they do, and maybe someday, if I can get this channel to really grow, and I could, start having a Patreon, maybe I could afford an Xbox, and then I can make some Xbox content for you guys. That would be nice. Actually, speaking of making content for you guys, I am thinking about doing a game series surrounding Blood and Truth. Break it into bits and stuff. I'm still going to have to play with that idea, but there's an idea I've got in my head. Okay, so what else? Nintendo. Now we all love the Switch. We know the Switch is a lovely bit of kit and can do interesting things. And it got a little bit left out here for the first part of the year, but it's crawling back up and it's getting some stuff again, which is nice. It's a good, easy system. It's got some power. It's not got as much power as it could have, but it's doing all right. And Nintendo seems to be prepared to support the system with a good many things. So, yeah, I think there's a fair bit of juice behind the Switch. I think it's got a future. And let's face it, it's been going a wee while now, so it's doing alright. Now, of course, the big question is, will there be a Pro Switch? Or Switch Mark II, or whatever you want to call it. A more powerful version of the console at hand. And part of me says yes, and part of me says no. And I'll tell you for why. Nintendo generally doesn't tend to do upgrades on systems. They don't generally tend to do SKUs. I mean, the only time they've even come close to that was when they reissued the Wii, so then it couldn't take previous games from previous systems. Because if you remember, the Wii, when it first launched, it had ports in the back. I can't remember what games you could put in it, but you could put games in from past systems, and they would play. So yeah, but they took that out. And of course there was the red miniature version and stuff. But generally speaking, Nintendo doesn't do that. I mean, they didn't do it with the Wii U. And they never did it with the 64. They never did it with the GameCube. Of course, they were going to do it with the SNES and have an add-on for it. And that's how we got PlayStation. But by and large, Nintendo generally don't tend to do, mid-generation refresh type situations. They don't make an upgrade, You'll never see the Mega CD, for type situation. If some of you out there may not remember the Mega CD, basically you've heard of the Mega Drive, right? Well, Mega Drive is dead successful, as I'm sure you're aware. At one point, Sega went, right, let's make a CD-ROM gaming machine that has to slave itself to the Mega Drive to get a boost in power and a boost in gaming, which was a nice idea and concept, but it was a trash fire. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Okay, so if there is going to be another machine from Nintendo, then the question is, would it be like the Switch? Would it be a hybrid home and portable system? Or would they go fully portable, or would they go fully home, or whatever? And I'll admit it right here, right now. With as much as I know about gaming and as much experiences that I had, and I've been into gaming a long time. I mean, I'm 45. I've been into gaming since I was like 6 or 7. It's and I'll freely admit it, I couldn't tell you. Nintendo are an enigma. They really are. They do that anything. They don't give a monkeys. They do what they want to do when they want to do it on their terms, and nobody's going to tell them what or how to do. It's that simple. Nintendo's gonna Nintendo. And in some ways that's a good thing. In fact, if I know the only thing I can say about Nintendo, whatever it is they're going to do next, it's going to be a surprise. It'll be a surprise in either a whole bunch of ways or in one way in particular that'll be like a massive surprise. But chances are it's probably going to be a bunch of little surprises. And that's as far as I'm prepared to go with that, because Nintendo is too much of a quirky entity to go any further with that without looking like I'm talking out my bum. Okay, so I'll finish off with a place where I feel most comfortable. PlayStation. Now, to round it out for some of you new people, okay, I've been PlayStation since the beginning. I was there for the original first SKU PlayStation. There was like 3 or 4 SKUs of the original PlayStation. I had the first SKU. Okay, I have been here. I'm day one. I'm Sony hardcore. Not a fanboy though, because I can see when Sony make a screw up, and I have called them out on it. When you go back through the history of this channel, you will see me call out Sony many a time. So although I love Sony and I prefer their stuff, I will rip them a new a-hole if I have to. Okay. So, what do I think of PlayStation 5? Largely I am obviously very positive of it because, hey, I've gone and pre-ordered one without even knowing that much about it. I mean, we all know very little about the PlayStation 5. We don't know what its UI is like. We don't know what its store is like. We haven't really seen the SSD in action. We've only seen a minimal amount of gameplay, or admittedly we've seen more gameplay than we have from anybody else. We've seen some stuff that's like, multi-plat, and it's been a bit of a hodgepodge. There's been some very positive stuff, and there's been some not positive stuff. I mean, a pre-order fiasco, but then there was a pre-order fiasco for the Xbox systems as well. So you pay your money, you take your chances. But basically, I mean, I like the look of the controller. I like the look of the system. I do think it'd be better if it was completely black, but they've made a design decision, and quite frankly, it is a beautiful system to look at. And there will obviously, in a year or two, probably be some variants, or maybe you could pull off the sidewalls and replace them with new sidewalls. In fact, some people have suggested that you'll probably pull off the side walls, or one of the side wall, to input the memory extension module, because there doesn't seem to be a port on the back of the machine that takes it. Of course, we also need to know what's happening with this dongle or adaptation wire or whatever it is that allows us to plug in the camera from the PlayStation 4 so that PSVR works on the PlayStation 5. Because PlayStation VR does work on PlayStation 5, but apparently it's not compatible with the HD camera. If I'm wrong, obviously, please hit me up in that comment section. But yeah, it's like, what exact? We know so very little. We have more questions than we do answers, and it's been that way all the way along. And even when we have gotten answers from Sony, it's created more questions. It's like ever decreasing circles, man. Kind of feel like Bill and Ted, in like Bogus Journey, falling down through hell. 6 hours later, he's like, Bill, are you a rock? No. Are you a Ted? Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, we've got some questions for Sony. But by and large, I feel quite positive about their approach. I mean, the DualSense looks incredible. And I'm hoping it feels incredible too. I mean, because generally, we've all gotten used to, the PlayStation having a smaller controller than, the competitor. And I've liked that controller because it's not got very big hands. I mean, let's see a size comparison, shall we? Let's see, a can of Coke. Right, that's a can of Coke. So, size comparison. That's how big my hand is. I have not got the biggest hands. Okay, funnily enough, I've actually got the same size of hand as my mum and as my wife. My mum and my wife and me all have the same hand size. Well, I say my mum had. That still gets me. Yeah. So I've got small hands for a bloke, alright? But that's part of the reason why I've always felt drawn to the PlayStation controller, is because it fits my hands wonderfully. All the generations thus far have. And I like symmetrical sticks. Just how my brain goes, I like symmetrical sticks. So yeah, okay. So we got the this PlayStation Plus program thingy. So if you buy PlayStation 5, you get a whole bunch of PlayStation 4 games, on your Plus selection for you to have, which is lovely for new people. Because maybe it's because I'm such a rampant wee gaming monster, but most of those games on that list I've owned / played. Some of them I've borrowed, obviously, but I've played a lot of those. But for new people, just getting a PlayStation 5 and coming to the ecosystem for the first time, boom! That is something else. That is quite the great offer. I mean, if you're getting all those games, I did notice a couple notable exemptions though. No Horizon Zero Dawn. Is that because it's just come out for PC? No Death Stranding. Just come out on PC. And I noticed no Spider-Man. And I've reckoned the reason there's no Spider-Man is because of all the shenanigans that seems to be getting pulled with Spider-Man. I mean, they're talking about basically how, like, if you have Spider-Man PS4, you can put it in the PS5 and it will get an upgrade, but as soon as you put it in the PlayStation 5, you can't move across your saves. So you have to start from scratch. Now, yeah, okay, I played that game twice because I loved it and I decided to go for the platinum, which I don't do very often. But a third time playing it all the way through? I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, don't get me wrong, great game, but I don't know if I'm prepared to do that. And then there's the case that you can buy the Miles Morales version, and that's coming out on PlayStation 4. In fact, there's a number of games for the PlayStation 5 that are getting a PlayStation 4 version, even though Sony themselves have said, we believe in generations, we believe in a cut-off point. And even though I have said that it's kind of nice that, some people are going to get to play those games that can't afford to have a PlayStation 5, it does lead me back to that video I made a while ago, going, well, why am I buying the PlayStation 5 version of the game? If the PlayStation 4 version works on the new system and gets an upgrade so it looks like the PlayStation 5 version and acts like the PlayStation 5 version, then why am I buying the PlayStation 5 version? It's just not very well thought out right now. And it's an old problem with Sony. And it's a problem that's existed for years. And I don't know if it'll ever change. But the main problem I have with Sony, and I've said this for the longest time, it's the lack of messaging. For a couple of years there, they were great with the messaging. Beginning of PS4, it was so clear and they did so many great videos and they really nailed it down and they let everybody know everything and it was great. We knew what we were doing, we knew what we were buying. Now, messaging is so sporadic, so far between. It's like, you can't help but feel like the customer's not being told stuff. And it just feels kind of, I don't know what the word is. I don't have a word for it, which is unusual for me. It's not untrustworthy, but it's just sort of like, it's like they don't trust us to be able to understand their message. It's not great. I think it'd just be nice if Sony could actually come out and just tell us stuff. They kept us hanging forever, waiting for dates and that. And then when they did the launch, and it was like, They didn't give us the release date, and then we got the release date later from like Jeff Keighley. God, just I mean, oh God, it is a big bag of horrible. I don't understand it. Sony, sort your messaging out. You do great systems, you do great work, you do great games. You make some, admittedly, you do make some bonehead moves occasionally, but the biggest thing you need to sort out is your messaging. So, no. As for the current state of gaming, in 2020, moving into 2021, I, personally, me, as Bloke, actually think that there's going to be a lot of really, really good stuff kicking off. And I'm really excited to see the future and see what happens. So yeah, all in all, I think we're in an okay place. We could be in a great place, but we could be in a crap place. I like to think we're in a good place. You know, not great, but definitely above average. I think things are looking pretty decent for the gamer. Now, yes, we could be paying less for games. We could be knowing more stuff. You know, we could know that people in the industry could be unionized. All those kinds of things. Things could obviously be cheaper. It'd be nice if, like, you know, there's a bit more cross-play functionality across all the systems. So when I'm looking at you, you know, but when you get right down to it, things are actually pretty incredible. I mean, I say that as someone that's lived through and seen a lot of stuff of gaming. You go back and look at how things were back in the 90s and look at them now. It's scarcely the same market, scarcely the same, you know, pastime. Gaming has become a culture. And it's become a movement, it's become a force. Bigger than movies and TV and print media combined. Bigger than music. So, long live gaming. And don't disparage people who play on a different system or play on PC or play on a phone. We're all gamers together. And, yeah, you can't deal with that. I don't know what you're doing here. I don't know why you're a gamer. Love gaming, you know. I mean, I'm not I don't like turn-based battle games. I've never been a Final Fantasy guy. But you want to play Final Fantasy? You go right ahead, enjoy yourself. Because if you can't be enjoying gaming, then why are you doing it? Okay, I got a wee bit soapboxy there at the end, guys. Okay. So let me know on all those things I spoke about and the ideas for upcoming videos and that and the competition and so on and so forth. And obviously please do remember you can write in on various medias and ask me to talk about things as you've seen me do in this here video. Okay, I've rattled on for near enough an hour. I think it's time that I go bye bye. So I'll ask you to do the usual thing, which is, of course, hashtag support Scottish YouTubers. And, of course, as always, they bother.